welcome back to Maximum Octane, everybody. Joining me today, I'm really excited, is Mr. Geoff Berman, a dear friend and colleague, and he is an instructor extraordinaire. Is there any other way to explain you, Geoff?
Yeah, I'm a legend in my own mind. I got you.
You are a legend in your own mind, but that's an entirely different episode that might need to include Dr. Phil or some kind of something else. But in the meantime, you do an amazing job with instructing on leadership and engagement classes and staffing and hiring and phone skills and all kinds of things. And I appreciate you joining me. I asked Geoff to join me today because it is spring training is going on right now, and I'm a huge diehard Yankee fan, which will come into play a lot during this as we talk about the need for
wait.
a bench.
Yankee fan. How does that work in Florida?
Okay, Steinbrenner Stadium is here, and that's where spring training
Well,
is.
all spring training's in Florida, isn't it? I mean, that's
No,
like
they have it over in Arizona and all kinds of other places too.
I
Geoff,
didn't know that.
what does not abandon their team because they moved from this state?
I just don't know if, like, you keep that a secret because you don't want to get beat up with Louisville Sluggers, or I don't know.
It
How
is
does that
not
work?
a secret, and probably I don't know if everybody's not ever been to Florida or doesn't live here. There's probably more New Yorkers and New Jersey people in Florida than people born in Florida. So
you know that it's the East Coast. Florida is like the assisted living facility for the northern East Coast. Okay, so I'm sure there's plenty of Yankee fans down there.
Thank you for that. There are, and it's pretty funny because when I go to the games here, it's always packed when it's the Yankees, and I talk to the people that work there, and they say the only 2 times a year the stadiums are filled up in Florida is when whatever team in Florida is playing the Yankees or the Red Sox. So there's that. But anyway,
being a Jewish human, I can tell you that we see Florida as the retirement state. So it's fantastic down there. Anyway, not to pick on Florida.
One of the jokes is this is God's waiting room.
Yeah.
That's what somebody told me the other day. They were like, you live in God's waiting room. But here nor there, we're here to talk about baseball. And spring training is going on. Opening day is March 30th. And being that Geoff is an instructor for staffing and hiring class and all things about that, I thought it would be wonderful to have him come on and talk to me. And one of the things that we see in any business, large or small, especially small businesses, is people do not build a bench. So we'll get to what this has to do with baseball and the Yankees, but want to explain a little bit about building a bench, Geoff?
Well, I mean, I think the best way to explain it is talk about baseball. So, I look at a bench as very similar to baseball. It's funny you brought this topic up because I actually talk about it this way in class. And so, the rules of baseball in terms of, the basics is pretty simple, right? You got to have 9 players on the field at all times. If you don't have 9 players on the field, you forfeit the game. Doesn't matter what the score is, right? Now, typically, the pitcher is probably the one that's going to be, moved around a bit more than any other player. But you got to have all players, backups for all these players. Otherwise, if I don't have a backup catcher and the catcher gets hurt, if I don't have somebody behind the plate, game over, right? So in a baseball scenario, a bench is important. That makes sense. I don't want to forfeit the game. Now, the reality is that in our world, it's really no different. Unfortunately, we don't forfeit the game, so it doesn't seem as important. So when I lose a player on my team, assuming it's the same 9 or whatever the requirement is, right? If I lose a player on my team, the rest of the team pitches in, we figure it out, we get it done, hopefully, right? But that's not a good position to be in, and it puts us in a position as leaders to, maybe be a little bit desperate on who we hire and hire some of the wrong people. And then we go through this cycle of crap because we don't fill our bench. And then in the end, we're continuing hiring the wrong people over and over again. So what I would suggest is we think about this bench in the same way we do baseball, right? And that same urgency we put on replacing someone when they leave, we just shift that urgency to our bench. Because if I have a backup, I never have to worry. And so that's the idea behind the bench, is that we always have people we can pull from no matter what. And we need to think about it not just, oh, I got someone on my bench. I got an A tech on my bench. I got a B tech on my bench. I got a C tech on my bench. I got 2 C techs. I got 5 C techs. I got 12 C techs on my bench. Right. And the deeper, and it's funny, another baseball analogy. I tend to think more about the bench as a bleacher in our world than I do
Okay.
as an actual bench, because you want to go back as far as you can. There's no limit to the depth, right, of how many people you can have sitting on that bleacher. But
Well,
the
they do
reality
that
is
in
you should be ready.
baseball with the farm leagues and all
Absolutely.
of the leagues underneath, right? And the
Absolutely. It's the
AAA
same.
and AA and all of that. So it's so important to have that. And the sports teams get it, that they have to always be cultivating talent, growing your own, growing them up through bringing them up the ranks, so that if they run out of their bench or something happens, even their current bench, then they have somewhere else to go immediately. They know who the next call is, the next player they're bringing up, and what's coming on. And we don't do that. And like you said, then people just chip in time, and they try to do it. And it doesn't ever, it does. I don't care how good you are, how professional your people are, how productive they are. When you're making up for an entire missing person, you're not firing on all the cylinders. You're not. And when you look in the sports world, even the NFL or anything else, when the bench is not as strong, and you don't have that there, then you lose the game. You lose the game. So as a Yankees fan, why I brought that up is, I mean, my gosh, every year we get to the playoffs, we get to whatever, and then it's like our bench is not deep enough, right, to carry us through when it really counts. And not that the whole season doesn't count, but it's the same thing, and we see that in a lot of the shops and small businesses, is they're like, oh, they're having this great month, and boy, we're on track. We're going to have the best month ever. And then the last week of the month, somebody calls out sick, or they hurt a finger, or they do whatever. And it's like the whole quarter shot, the whole month is shot. Everything that they worked for is done because somebody's missing and they don't have. So one of the things I wanted you to speak on is, here's what I hear a lot when I talk to anybody, and not even just in our industry, Geoff, in any industry, because as soon as people find out what I do for a living, and that Emma coach, they're like, oh,
Isn't it surprising you how similar it is in terms of it's everywhere, right? It's everywhere.
And they're like, well, no, none of my people are leaving. They all love it. They love it. They love it. Well, guess what? Maybe their spouse or significant other has to go. Their parents get ill and they have to go move to another state. Like, people don't always leave because they want to or because they don't love you. Even if we put aside, nobody's going to get hurt, because younger people think they're invincible and nothing's ever going to happen, right?
Older people think that too.
The older people think that too. But, sometimes there's something out of their control. There's so many times I moved across the country years ago to take care of my grandparents who were ill and just couldn't be on their own anymore, and somebody had to. I mean, that's how I wound up starting my shop. And that wasn't anything that I ever planned or was in my life plan of, here's what. I loved my job. I loved where I lived. I loved my friends. But my family needed me. And so I packed up and moved across the country. So the situations like that happen all the time. So it doesn't even have to be somebody gets hurt or they don't like you and so they want to quit. There's so many reasons that somebody has to leave, and we're not prepared for it. So here's the thing that I hear the most, though, Geoff, is, how can I build a bench if I don't have any openings?
The mind thought, when I hear that, the mind thought typically is, well, how do I interview and hire someone if I have no place to put them, right?
Yes.
And so the answer I would always come back with is, well, who says you're hiring, right? It has nothing to do with the fact that you're hiring. What you're doing is you're filling your bench. And, well, that's dishonest. No, it isn't. Tell them you're filling your bench. Explain what the bench is. Offer them a position on your bench, right? So when you put an ad out, which that's a whole different podcast on why we shouldn't do that. But for this discussion, if we're putting an ad out and you're not hiring, don't say in your ad you're hiring. Say you're interviewing. right? Just tell them the truth. And when they come in and they do the interviews, assuming we do a good interview, different podcast. Okay. Then, we can start filling our bench and getting people interested. The idea, you only have two people on your bench. You have the people that are interested in you, but you're not ready for them yet. And you have the people that you're interested in, but they haven't been convinced to make a change yet. And the real truth is the people you want to hire already have jobs, maybe even good ones, right? The ones we end up hiring are the ones that need a job now, which is the ones that can't get employed, which is why we have these problems. So if you think about it from that perspective, I'm recruiting is what you're really doing. And what I tend to do is, and I'm wondering any listeners that are listening to this, thinking about in a previous life, like years and years ago, either you were or you did recruit. You think about the jobs that you've taken in your life. How many of them were I answered an ad and got a job, or someone told you about another job, or you showed up because of someone you knew, right? And there was a connection made, right? That's what a bench is all about. When you left whatever job you had and opened up your shop, there was somebody there that you talked to and said, hey, you got to come work for me. And maybe it happened, maybe it didn't. But that was a bench. That's what you were doing. You were filling a bench. You were doing it by accident. Now we just need to do it with intention. That's the difference.
The attention is what gets them every time. We like to play. It seems like a lot of people the victim role. Oh, we can't find any help. I can't get anybody. Nobody wants to work. Blah blah blah. Poor me. And it's like, what are you doing to stop that? And there's so many.
I know what they're doing. They're placing an ad that's probably not very good, and they're crossing their fingers, and they're interviewing 3 or 4 people and picking the best of the worst, right? The best bad choice they have, or worse than that, they only have one option, and it's not a good one. And then they hire someone and they go, I hope this one works out. And then how often does that happen, right? So if we continue that cycle, we're going to continue with those results. We got to change something.
We do. We do have to change something. And one of the things that I think people get confused about with building a bench is, so I have this person, I interview them, I tell them we're not hiring, and then what? And so you have to stay in touch with them, right? You have to follow up with them. You have to stay in touch with them.
That was the point I was making a moment ago. You got to offer them a position on the bench. Make it important. Look, I want you to come to work here, but we're not going to be ready for someone for the next 9 months or so. But here's what I can offer you, a position on my bench. And what does that mean? This means we're going to stay in touch with you. We're going to invite you to company functions. We're going to, have your family involved in our, picnic we're having next month or whatever. We're going to engage the bench. Maybe we'll assign a mentor whose job it is to, have lunch with them once a month. We figure out ways. Because the real truth is, especially if it's someone who hasn't made the decision yet, most of the time when people are leaving, it's not about money. It's about the environment, right? They're not treated well. The tools are old and not updated. The shop's a mess. The lighting stinks. Whatever it might be, the manager's a turd. I don't get along with them. Whatever it might be, and as a result, they're looking for another job. So if they're kind of on the fence because they've been there for 10 years, and even though the management changed, they're still afraid to leave, and they start engaging with you, and the family starts engaging with you, over time, what's going to happen? You know what? One thing's going to happen. It's going to piss them off, and who are they going to think about? You know what? I'm done with this. Boom. But what we do is we get too involved in if it doesn't happen now, then screw it. And we got to start thinking, this is a long-term game. This is a hat I need to be wearing all the time. This is my job. My full-time job is to be a recruiter. And filling a bench is recruiting.
I was reading some stats the other day, and some of the athletes in professional sports now, the recruiters, they're looking at 10-year-olds. They're recruiting 10-year-olds that are not even eligible to play until 18 or after. Some in early 20s, depending what school they go, not school, and all of that. But 10 years old, they're going out and they're looking for talent that's 10 years old to be in major leagues of sports. I mean, that's incredible. We don't look past 5 seconds before. We don't do anything of trying to groom people to be into our in our industry, and we gotta start changing all of that. Besides the bench and all of that, one
But
of
now
the
you're
things
talking about
too,
training, and that's a whole different
training.
subject.
So
Yeah.
we're going to talk about that though for a minute, because I know that's an entirely different podcast, but we do need to cover that for a minute. But when you think about building that bench and doing that, hopefully you have a 5-year budget that you know exactly where your business is going. You know that in 6 months I'm going to need this person, in 9 months I'm going to need that person, in 16 months I'm going to need this person. You know, here's what I'm going to add: a full-time shuttle driver. Here's when I add a additional service advisor. Here's when I add additional trainees, right? And then that helps you build your plan. So when you're talking to somebody about the bench and you're offering them a position on the bench, you'll be able to tell them exactly when, that if everything stays the way it is with my current staff, I'm going to have a position available for you in 3 months and 4 days, or 6 months, or whatever it is, so that they could start thinking and adjusting and looking at things as well. And then you can also let them know that if something changes with the current staffing, that you might be calling them sooner, and would they be okay with that? And we have had great success with this. I know it's easy for people to say, no, that's not going to work. It won't work here. I'm too small. I'm too big. I'm too this. I'm too that. You don't know what it's like. Geoff, you don't understand what it's like here.
God, I wish I could understand. I just don't understand. You're right.
So let's touch on training for just a smidge, and that is an entirely different podcast.
Before you go to training, can I just say one more thing about the bench? So, because I want to make this point, because I think that a lot of people don't see the bench this way. We're talking about the bench in terms of new people coming, right? New hires, but there's other people you can put on your bench. And so as an example, especially if we're looking at it in that bleacher scenario, you might have, let's say, a really good C-Tech that, and this goes back to training a little. If we are training our people properly, our C-Tech wants to be a B-Tech, right? And our goal is to make them a B-Tech, right? And so,
Geoff, are you saying that our people should have career paths for their internal customers?
Oh, no, that's not what I'm saying. I would never suggest anything like that.
That's just talking
crazy. Yeah, so I mean, there's never a ceiling, right? There's always something next, right? And I should be striving for that, all right? So if I am doing that, we'll just talk about techs for a moment because it's easy to understand. If I'm a C-Tech and I'm being groomed to be a B-Tech, I'm on a training program to get me to a B-Tech, and we're at a place where I'm 3/4 of the way. If need be, could I be a backup for that B-Tech, right? So if I lose a B-Tech, can I bring my C-Tech into that position because he's close, right? And if so, then my general service guy maybe can move. So I should be looking internally as well. When their skills get to a certain place, could this person be a backup for that other position? Because let's face it, if I lose a B-Tech, it's a whole lot easier to find a C-Tech than it would be to find another B-Tech. Does that make sense?
It does. It makes perfect
sense. So I wanted to make that point as well. Anyway, go ahead. Now you can ask about training.
Well, I just, because we're talking about baseball, because I'm excited. It's baseball season. Although, here's a whole other podcast. You know, there's always that saying that people are like, when something goes whatever, somebody acts like a knucklehead, and they're like, this is why we can't have nice things. For now on, the rest of my life, I'm getting rid of that. And it's like, this is why we need bigger bases. But that's going to be an entirely other podcast of why we had to make bigger bases in baseball now. But I'm going to put that aside right now because I'm really struggling.
I wasn't even aware of that. That's hilarious.
Yes, there's a new rule. There's an 8-second count for this year, and then some bigger bases.
Oh, I saw that with the pitcher. There was a timer going. I'd never seen that before.
Yeah. Well, I'm okay with that because it starts the clock, and then the games are getting done in like 2-something hours. But the bigger base, we're gonna have a whole other podcast on all of this. And I mean, we could tie the pitcher clock on with productivity, right? Like, you know, you have a schedule. You have to have things, and it's sure changing all the batters and all their rituals and their stuff going on. So anyway, what I wanted to talk about was when you're watching the game and you are looking in the bench and who's ready to go up, what pitchers are warming up, what catchers are warming up. They have all of that happening during the game. And even though they've been playing baseball for years, holy cow, they still train them. They still meet with them all the time. They still make them practice. Isn't that crazy?
I
But they've
don't
been
even
doing it for
understand that. Wait,
years,
wait.
Geoff.
Once I'm a professional ball player, I know all this stuff. Why would I have to practice?
Well, why?
Wait. I go to the gym. Isn't that enough?
It's just so crazy to
I
me
eat
that,
healthy.
yeah,
I
you
check
don't
my
need
weight.
it.
I know the game. I've been doing this my whole life.
Yeah.
I'm on a
I've been doing this.
professional
I've
ball
been
team
playing
now.
since I was 9. I don't need any more practice.
I mean,
I
that
don't need
concept
any
is
training.
insanity. Why would anyone think that a professional ball team would need to practice? I don't get it.
Isn't that crazy? It's just cray, Geoff. Just cray that they make them practice, even though they've been doing it for
I
years.
love where you're going with this. Keep going.
So, what I want to ask is, because I know you're huge on training and always training everybody, and you want everybody to look at their business as a training company because there's constant training. But somehow, and especially small businesses in our industry specifically, it's like we get somebody on the counter, or we get somebody out in the shop, and then we're like, oh yeah, they've been doing it for years. We don't have to train them anymore. We don't have to practice. Let's take a service advisor, for example.
Just like these new ball teams, they don't have to practice either.
I get told, no, we don't. I'm like, are you role playing? Are they, as a service advisor, saying out loud the presentation before they call the customer? Are they doing it into their phone? Are they whatever and listening, play it back? They don't have to do that. They're practicing all day. No, they're not practicing all day. And if you're saying that, makes me even crazier because you want them practicing all day on your customers than your external customers. So, Geoff, why is it, do you think, that those crazy ball players require someone to train and practice, even though they've been doing it for years, most of them since they're 4 years old? But we are like, yeah, no, there, and especially when we're hiring, here's why I want to bring up training and practice and all. We are so great. We get somebody, we're like, oh, man, I know you get the calls too, Geoff. Kim, I got this guy or gal I want to hire. I can't wait to get them. I'm so excited. I'm praying they come to work for me. Why? What are they? Why are you? What skills do they have? What? They've been doing it for 20 years.
Great.
Okay. Do we know they're doing it well for 20 years? Is it the way that your company does
Their
things for
toolbox
20
is
years?
big. It's all good.
They have a shiny toolbox. It's just crazy. And they just take someone's word for it that because they have X amount of years with experience and that they've been doing it for X amount of years.
This really goes back to not doing a very good interview, too.
It does.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about training, but what you're talking about right now is you fooled your gut because you didn't shut up in the interview and you did all the talking. That's what you're saying, right? The one who does the talking is the one who likes the other person, right? So I'm interviewing you. I'm telling you all about what we do and how great it is. And you're going, and you leave going, what? This was a waste of time, right? But I'm going, man, I love you because all you did was listen.
We do have some folks that like to make the interview about them instead of the person they're interviewing.
I call it the 90-10 rule, right? We talk 90% of the time. We should be talking 10% of the time. We can't learn anything about the person if we don't ask them questions. And by asking them the questions again and talking, that's when they start falling in love with us. We got it backwards. Ego gets in the way. And then we go, oh my God, this person's so great. Because they just listen to you tell them how great you are. So you're going, they're great. I mean, some people listening are going to go, oh my God, yeah, that's me. And others are going to go, yeah, you're smoking crack. And hopefully more of them are saying that because they've gotten past this. But this is where we fail in the interviews, big time.
We do. And we don't ask enough questions about core competencies. And, it's very shallow, a lot of the interviews. And so when you're building your bench, you have to remember that in today's world, when you're interviewing, people are much more savvy when they're looking for a job today, and they can research you on. It used to be that we did all the research and we looked people up. They research you. They research your reviews. They research your website. They research everything before they come to you, a lot of them. So,
and if they do and they still show up, what does that say?
Yeah. So it's important. So those of you that have websites that look like I don't know what and dirty floors and all of those things and on your pictures online, remember that that is a virtual representation of your shop or your
You
business.
know we can't do a 2-day class in 30 minutes. But I see you trying.
I'm trying because I know that is the number one thing in every industry everywhere, that people are having trouble finding staff. And so I'm trying to get everything in there. We need just hours.
So
We need hours. We need hours
let's go back
to
to
cover this.
your training example. I just want to just throw something out there because I love where you're going with this. And you're right that we don't spend enough time with that. And we do a lot of assuming when we bring people in, right? And so here's a quote I'd like to share. I learned myself when watching a golf video on Facebook a few months back. And this is what he said: practice makes permanent. Just
Oh,
think about
instead of
that for a
perfect.
minute.
I love that.
Practice makes permanent. So going back to your statement where you said, "Oh, we're practicing all the time." Well, what are you really practicing? So I've had 20 years of practicing whatever it is I'm doing in one or two other places before I came here, right? Now, just because I've been practicing it for 20 years doesn't mean I'm any good at it, right, Kim? You got your singing example. You want to give them the singing example? Go ahead. Come on.
Oh, I'll let you share it.
So Kim, I'll never forget this. She said this to me, I don't know, probably 5 years ago. Jeff, I've been singing for 50 years. I've had lots of practice, but you don't want to hear me carry a tune because I can't, right?
No,
And
you will
so,
never see me at karaoke. For the sake of others, you will not ever see me at karaoke or whatever. But I sing every single day, and sometimes hours a day. I sing when I'm cleaning. I sing when I'm working. I sing in the shower. I rock out in my car.
and to you, it sounds fantastic.
I have the best concerts in my car, in air drum and air guitar and all of that. And you don't want to hear me sing?
But here's the thing, though. You could say that's been 50 years of practice, and fairly it kind of is, right?
Every
But
day?
if you really wanted to be a good singer, what would you have to do?
Go to a vocal coach and learn how to sing and breathe and all of that stuff.
So practice makes permanent, right? So if we've practiced the wrong stuff for a long time, right, and we bring them into our business, all we did was allow all their bad habits to become part of our business. And the real truth is, experience is not necessarily the best thing to hire, because if we don't take the time to untrain all of the bad habits and make a new permanent, then we're going to have that problem over and over again. And a lot of people listening go, "Oh yeah, I can see that. It's happened to me many times." And I want to try to help you avoid that. And the best way to do that would be to say, stop hiring for experience, hire for the human. You're actually better off hiring someone without those types of experience. I use TechMetric, or I use, AutoVitals, or whatever I use. Okay, great. Well, so they use it too? Doesn't mean they're any good at it. To them, it might have been just a glorified cash register. To you, it's got lots of value. What's that?
I'm just like me singing.
Yeah, yeah.
It
So,
doesn't do anything.
and we try to avoid training. We say to ourselves, we can skip that part of training because I have someone with experience. And the truth is, they need to double or triple down on training in most cases. So if you want to have less training, hire someone that needs to learn it.
Can you imagine a vocal coach having to untrain me from my shower and
Yeah.
my car rock concert?
Would you have been a better singer if you got practice at, say, 16 versus at 50?
I'm guessing. I'm just going to throw that out there that maybe. But I can play a mean tambourine.
I just got to tell you a quick funny story. So years and years ago, I got this wild hair up my rear that I'm going to learn how to play the piano, because I always regretted not learning a musical instrument. So we had a piano, the kids played. I'm like, I'm going to take lessons. So I had a piano instructor come in and sit with me for an hour once a week, and they'd give me this stuff and I'd play it. It was, the hot cross buns kind of stuff, right? And the house would go nuts. Yeah, chopsticks. That's enough already. I mean, I practiced for hours. I couldn't get it. I just couldn't get it. And they were like, "Dad, it's enough. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it." So finally I gave it up and I had to stop. Right. And I was learning really, really slow, right? And it was in that moment that I realized that I probably should have done this when I was a lot younger. And that's the real truth. That there's so much of our at a certain age, it becomes so hard to learn these new skills. And if I have some skills, or at least I think I have some skills in that area that I've been doing for so long, the 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 ability to beat that out of me and get it different is really, really, really hard. And so,
And there has to be a willingness, and that's, I think,
yeah.
the other thing that when we're interviewing, we miss the boat because we don't talk about that. And there's sometimes people will hire someone, and the first thing out of their mouth when I talk to them is, "Oh, I could teach whatever class. I don't need it." And I'm like, "That did you mention that during the interview?" And they're like,
So
"Oh yeah, I told them."
When you said core competencies a minute ago, one of the things we should be looking at is adaptability, right? So am I coming in with this hardwired, mindset that's unchangeable, or am I coming in saying, yeah, I know the product and I'm sure you'll show me some other things, and I'm adaptable to, letting some bad habits go and bringing some new ones in. Problem is, most of the time we don't even look for that in the human, and if we do, we hire them anyway when they don't have it, and because we're desperate because we don't have a bench. So if we rethink this whole process, right, and put it back on ourselves. I mean, it's really what this is all about, putting it back on ourselves to change what we're doing and look at it and approach it differently. We're going to get a different result, regardless of what you think may or may not be out there. There's plenty of great humans out there. There may not be plenty of great humans that have the skills you want, but there's plenty of great humans out there. If we start hiring for that, we'll have a whole different experience.
See, I'm from New York, so we say humans.
Oh,
there's a lot of humans out there.
Humans?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going to say there weren't many.
Humans.
I thought you were going to say there weren't many of them in New York. That's why you went to Florida.
I had a couple detours before I got to Florida. Well, Geoff, as always, it's a pleasure, but it starts with a bench. Every time you see a commercial for spring training, the controversy on the 8-second clock and this is why we need bigger bases now in all of baseball season, which for some of you think it goes on forever. Think about building your bench and the importance of it, because it starts with that. I mean, it starts before there, but we don't have enough time to talk on that about culture and appearance, blah, blah, blah. But you got to start building your bench. You have to. There isn't
bleacher.
Well, bleacher, but your bench, bleacher. Geoff wants to say bleacher. Your teams, your under teams,
your rows
farm
of benches,
leagues, your farm leagues, all of that stuff. It's so crucial, and that is going to be everybody's downfall in the next couple of years. Is the staffing that you hire or cannot hire because you're not doing anything about it, and that is going to be, it's not the economy, it's not the inflation, it's not COVID, it's not any of those things. Your downfall is going to be the lack of your bench and being prepared for that, because that is an asset that we really need to be working on. So please think about that. Well, as always, I'm envisioning you playing chopsticks and hot cross buns right now. Are there videos of this, Geoff?
No, thank God.
No videos. Okay.
I'm considering trying it again. Can you believe that?
I do believe it. And maybe now in your life that you're not raising small children and doing all those things.
They're not in the house to complain anymore, right?
Yeah. You could just make all the noise you want.
Now that I'm 10 years older, I'm sure I'll be way better at it.
Follow your passion. It's never too late, and you're never too old to follow your passion in your heart. So, but now I understand more about the cat playing piano reference all the time. So, everybody, stay safe, make good choices, and just stay inspired. And we will be back next week. Thank you.